Hi everyone, welcome to my Shoreline studio. I'm Sybil Muschik. Behind the camera is Joshua Blanc. In the last episode, 65 A, B, and C, we did crackle pastes and we used the golden crackle paste and Deco Art crackle paste and my homemade crackle paste. So here's some results. Our cat was with just the golden, and it crackled beautifully. It was just white. I painted it afterwards, added a little bit of fluorescent orange here so the cat would really stand out. But you can see right to the bottom it crackled beautifully. This one is, we're starting to add color now, and this one is a Deco Art. And it actually crackled better with color added because the crackles are considerably bigger. And here it's the golden crackle paste, and you can see some of the cracks, but added, because you're adding extra acrylic, which makes it more flexible. Possibly you don't get the amount of crackles you want. This one, I've painted it on top compared to adding color in, and this is my homemade, and then we pushed in the leaves, and so I just added more color to it to show up the leaves. And I think this one had glue added as well, and medium, but that's it. But painting is very successful. This last one is, we have glue and paint in my homemade medium, and I used a little bit less medium. I used matte medium in it to make it work because it's a powder. And this one crackled very nicely, but it's very thin. I used a variety of colors just to show you. That was sort of leftover paint. We didn't want to waste anything. And this one, we just used a stencil I had, and we pushed it on there and then removed it. And that was true of the leaves as well. I pushed the leaf on, and then, but we left those and then pulled them off when it was dry. With this one, it was still wet, and it sort of becomes dendritic in a way because you're getting that, but you can see the pattern is quite nice. And by just painting on top with a darker color brings it out. And here you can see the dendritic aspects where it's not crackles. It's just because you're pulling that object and you're pulling it off. So those are the results. Now today we're starting on a whole new thing, and it's called Chine-Collé. Now Chine-Collé, Chine of course it means China, and Collé just means glue. So it's sort of gluing rice papers on top of other papers in printmaking. And it's not collage as such, because what happens is that the two papers, when you glue them together and you put them through an etching press, really sort of become combined. The fibers interlock. Now I have an example. Now I've been working with a gel plate because I don't have an etching press. And I did this little piece. It's from this photograph of a mushroom. And what was the mushroom, Josh? What do you think?
We think it was a late fall oyster.
Yeah, an oyster mushroom. So, yes, very edible. But we didn't pick them. We left them as is. So I did, this is handmade paper, and you can see the fibers in it. And probably kozo fibers that haven't been totally processed. And it's beautiful paper. And that is Chine-Collé onto this background. So this is what we're going to be working with today, and hopefully we'll have success. But if you were here to feel this, you could almost tell no difference even though I didn't have a press, I just left it to dry with glue on the back, and I'll show you all the process. And it's almost like one piece, so not really that close to collage. So we're going to start off with a transfer of graphite. Well, was graphite, and here's our little, this was a 7B, nice and dark. And the rest is charcoal pencil. So I wanted the veins of the mushroom to be a little bit more delicate, so I used pencil for that. So we're just going to, I've started already, so we're just going to enhance a few of them so that they will print. I've already done the one print, so it might have taken a lot of the graphite off. So this will take a few minutes. Josh will put a little interlude in here while I'm doing this, or just put some music on probably. And we're just going to run some more lines. I actually traced the lines off so that they would be very close to what the mushroom produced. And they're about, what would you say, Josh, about maybe 6 inches across, this particular one? 6 or 7?
More like 4, I think, that one.
That was, oh, okay, that's a close-up.
Yeah, it's close up.
Okay. So they're about, yeah, around 2 to 3 to 4 inches for some of them were much smaller.
That was the bigger one anyway.
Yes, that was the bigger one, yeah. And as you can see from here, it sat on this top of this log, a deteriorating log, probably a willow tree, right? Was it willow or birch? Alder? Alder, okay. There were all the trees I mentioned. There was willow, alder, and birch in the area. That's because it's sort of a swampy area, so lots of water. It was quite a fresh specimen, so it probably would have still been edible. I didn't see any worm tracks or anything, but then it might be too cold for worms. We're already getting frost. Okay, that does it for the mushroom. So we continue with this drawing. My first drawing of this log and the mushroom were quite simplistic, so we can add a few more details this time. Maybe give some of the tree trunks some character. We had leaves in this section. We could put a few elephant eyes in. And just some bark markings there were some tree branches in here and a certain amount of leaves, and it would just make those as massives because we're going to be painting those in, but just to give an indication. I guess we'll switch over to the charcoal for the heavier duty stuff. And we'll just give a little bit more shape to this. Pencil doesn't squeak as much. I'm just seeing the major lines. Just want to keep it fairly simple because we're going to be painting in masses, not particular details. And what I just noticed were all these lines coming down. And because this is orange, we're going to be doing more orange tones to tie the composition together. And our darkest values are going to be here at the base, so that it really highlights the mushroom. So there's all these nice little marks. And you could go all hog wild with the details here, but it isn't necessary because the painting itself will have a certain amount of impact. So not too much, just teachers are always saying paint the masses. Don't worry about the details, they'll look after themselves. And you only put them in at the end anyway. And there's a lot of negative work happening here. Okay. Make all your lines interesting. And that should do it. So then we just place this on this, line it up. We don't really have to register because it's all going to be done on one level. I'm just making sure there's a good impression of the graphite and the charcoal. Yes. And now we put the mushroom back. And just get some of the details. Now, this has to be registered carefully. And we'll put that little paper back. Now with the first one, we didn't pick up a lot of the lines because it's put down as a mask. And I don't really want to put a lot of medium down because the medium has got to go on the back. So it might pick them up or it might not. We'll see about that. So we're going to be using some distress crayons to color this in because it's a water base. And we're going to paint this first. And make sure that the paint is applied on the other side. So we're going to be putting, because this side is where the glue is going to go. So just to keep things clear. So I have my brush. And I think I'm going to water down this paint quite a bit. This is acrylic paint. You can thin acrylic to about 1/3 water before it starts breaking apart. And I have a fair amount of medium in there as well. So we're going to just apply this. We want to make sure that we see the nice fibers from this handmade paper. For those of you who are in BC, if you go to Vancouver to the market, Granville Island Market, there's a place called Paper Ya, and it has beautiful handmade papers of all kinds. If it's still there, it should be there. It's in the Net Loft building. And they have drawers and drawers of absolutely gorgeous handmade papers. So when I'm down there, I usually pick up something or other. They're not exactly unreasonable, so not too expensive. Okay. Now, because this is wet, it might just pick up the graphite. And just lay it in place carefully. This is the tricky part. And that's why it helps to have everything outlined. There we go. And it's fairly strong paper, so no worries about it ripping. If you're using a tissue paper, it might be a little bit more difficult. Okay, and we'll let that dry on there for now. So the mushroom can dry for now. We're going to activate some colors here on my little plate, and we need a little bit of water. You can draw it on directly and then activate it, but it's kind of a pain, so I just ended up doing it the other way. Just rub it on there, and then you can just draw directly on the plate. You're hearing some strange noises in the background. There's a fierce wind going on. This really is a lot of the fun part. You don't have to be really precious about the drawing. Just enjoy the tones and the variations in color. And the watercolor aspect of it, it'll do its own thing anyway. And we'll probably speed up this process because it's going to take some time. So just do the shapes that you see. Just picking up the color that's in the mushroom here and there, just to tie your composition together. You can add it in some of the parts of the trees, whatever. Maybe a leaf or two, whatever. And then it sort of goes greenish at the base, and there was a bit of violet. So some of this has violet tones, which is quite nice, and that got picked up in the first print. And up here in the and back in here. So it sort of broke on me, so I'll just work with it here. Now it looks very pale, but when you print it, as you saw, it has a certain amount of saturation that you don't expect. The main thing is the mushroom. Okay, and a little bit of green for leaves and such, and contrast. Boy, it's fierce out there. There's white caps on the water. There's a bit of green down in here. And then the green of the leaves. Now, because we're working with wet paper and wet media, all this has to dry. So we will, not sure if we're going anywhere today because of the windstorm, but you'll get an interlude and then you'll get to see the result. But it would take us quite a few hours. It might take up to 4 or 5 hours to dry this. So a few leaves here and there, I think. And then a little bit of blue in the sky. And the reason we're doing that is I'm not really usually doing blues and skies because it's so cliche, but in this case we have a nice mushroom and the blue is just a lovely complement to it. These distress crayons are quite fun to work with. You can draw with them directly, or you can do what I'm doing is wet them a little bit and then draw with them that way. That way when they print, they look like watercolors. Okay. Well, obviously I'm rushing and you know, at home you can take as much time as you want to get a really good impression. And we might put a little bit of blue underneath here in the shadow area. If you use color, then you should use it several other places in your composition. It ties everything together, makes it look cohesive. So the mushroom is fairly dry already, but now it won't take long. You can see that it's dried in a few spots. So this part will take no time at all, maybe half an hour. And then we're going to put the medium on top, and with a little bit of white to pick up the color and to transfer it to our paper. I have paper soaking in my sink, and I'll show you how to towel it off, and then we'll proceed to the next step. Okay, so now we're at mixing up our white and medium for the release layer. And the release layer, of course, has, with the medium in it, will act as glue for the Chine-Collé. It looks pretty good. The tricky part will be making sure that stays put when we're adding this release layer on. Okay, so roll it on. It doesn't have to be really thick, just enough to release you don't want it too thick. It might not take up the image that you've spent so much time painting, so just make sure you're not. What I did while we were waiting, I lifted up the mushroom part to make sure it wasn't sticking to the plate, because that's got to release. Okay, now we're just going to take that off, and we have our papers in the sink here. This is just my multimedia paper, but it's pretty good. It's almost like printmaking paper. Printmaking paper might be just a little bit too heavy for our purposes here. So what you do is you can see the wetness, and what you want to do is make sure there's no fuzzles and things. Just get it to the point where it takes the sheen off the paper. Then you know it's in good shape. So not too much and not too little. So pretty good, a little bit of sheen here and there. But I think we're good. Okay, and then you just place it. And because we don't have an etching press, you do have to add some weight to it. We just need a sheet of paper. And here's where our brayer comes in. That's our press. So a fair amount of pressure. You're helping those fibers to combine doing this. And also, of course, you're going to lift the background image. So we'll do the big reveal at the end, and we'll say goodbye for now. Hope you'll join us. We might do another Chine-Collé using something a little bit more spontaneous for the next session. Just cutting out some random papers and having a background. It should be just such a lot of fun as usual. So thanks for joining us, and take care of your families, be kind to one another. Bye for now. So we're about to reveal our print here. So it's starting to pull up. It's still a touch damp, but it's coming up really quite nicely. So there's a few lines on the where the mushroom is, and the Chine-Collé is almost seamless. We've got a little bit of a white halo here, but actually the mushroom itself has a white area on top anyway, so it's all good. And the watercolor aspects of it are really very interesting. It turned into a nice print. Now let's just compare with the previous one. And I've made it not quite so intense, so it goes well with the colors that are in the painting. And this, the log with that open area is maybe a little more intense now, so I think they both worked really well.